Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking all things Harry Potter as we are going to rank the 10 Wizarding World movies that have been released so far in honor of the new Fantastic Beasts movie, The Secrets of Dumbledore. So Harry Potter is a very special franchise for a lot of people around my age. A lot of us grew up with this as one of their key franchises that started in the early 2000s and ran all the way to the mid-teens. A lot of people really love these movies, my wife included. It is her favorite franchise. People grew up with these books. John Williams' score is amazing. It's just iconic films and characters at this point. So many people really truly care about these movies, and I figured no better time than right now to rank all these movies, including the Fantastic Beasts movies. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's talk. Fantastic Beasts came out in 2016 and was the first spin-off of the Harry Potter series, starring Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander. And this movie was very hyped up. Many people were excited because J.K. Rowling actually wrote the screenplay for it. She wrote the books for the other movies, but this is the first one where she wrote the screenplay, and it was made for film. And it just didn't land for me. My wife was super excited to see this. I was pretty excited. It didn't look like the greatest thing. You know, it was a period piece. It's set in 1926, and really it revolves around things that aren't my favorite thing in the Harry Potter universe, which is the creatures. So Newt Scamander, obviously he's very much into, you know, the Fantastic Beasts. The story just didn't work for me. Dan Fogel is a lot of fun in this movie, but everything, even though it's directed by David Yates, who directed a lot of the other movies, it just didn't stick for me. It just felt very bland. The cinematography in these is very, I mean, I know they're going for that 1926 feel, but everything just feels very flat. It didn't work for me. I mean, this movie does have pretty good reviews, but for me, this movie is just, in the entire Wizarding World series, this one was just very bad. I was not excited. I wasn't even excited at the end when Colin Farrell was revealed to be Johnny Depp, and that whole twist on the movie was, it didn't work. I was not excited for the second one after coming out of this. It was a very bland, boring, slow-moving movie for me, and unfortunately, I cannot recommend this movie to anybody. And in the Harry Potter verse, this is by far, for me, the worst one. At number 9, we got Fantastic Beasts 2, The Crimes of Grindelwald, and this one came out 2 years after the first one, and I believe that this one is much better than the first one. They improved on a lot of complaints that people had on the first one. I think this one's paced a lot better. The cinematography is a lot better. There's some really nice looking rain shots, especially when the carriage with Edward Miller's character is in the sky, and you know, the floating carriage and everything. That shot is beautiful. There is a lot more action in this movie, and the addition of Jude Law as Dumbledore is great casting. I really think they knocked the casting of Jude Law out of the park. Actually, I think this is one of Jude Law's better performances in the last few years. I really love him as this character. It actually makes me really excited for Fantastic Beasts 3, where Mads Mikkelsen will be taking over for the Johnny Depp role as Aurelius Dumbledore. So I think that the franchise, if they continue with it, is going in the right direction. I just can't rank this movie above the other 8 Harry Potter movies just because of nostalgia, and I just don't think that they have nailed the tone of these movies that I think a lot of people were expecting from J.K. Rowling and David Yates and everybody at Warner Brothers. So that's why this one is at number 9. Coming in at number 8, we have Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and it actually hurts me to put this movie at number 8 because I really do enjoy Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I think this is a lot of fun. This is the last one that is directed by Chris Columbus, but it is very similar to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's the second year. It comes out 1 year after the first Harry Potter. This one, it has like very much that childhood tone, like, you know, they're still coming up, they're still kids, the stories aren't that, you know, they don't feel like they're in that much danger as they would in the later movies when they go towards teenage years and adulthood. So this one is more of that kids feeling movie still, but you know, I feel like that's a knock against it, but I still have a lot of fun watching this. I really think that Chris Columbus was the perfect director for the first 2 movies, but you know, this movie is just, it's pretty slow. It really could have been paced a lot better because there's a lot of ups, but then there's also a lot of downtime in this movie that really, I think, hurts it. But there is still some very iconic scenes here. This is where we first meet Dobby, This is the first one where we see the flying car. It really has that magic feel to it, and I really think that you only really get that pure childhood feel from the first two movies, and this one still should be cherished to what some people hold it to, but again, it's just too long, and I just can't put it above the other 7. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince came out in 2009 and is the last movie before we get into our 2-part finale of the whole series, and this one I think is saved by a great third act, because the first 2 acts, they move along pretty slow. It's really just revolved around Harry finding this book, and a book of spells that he believes is dark magic, and it also, what I think is the greatest part of this movie is Tom Felton's Malfoy. I think this is the movie where his character shines the most. You can see the push and pull between good and bad between them, because I always believed that at his heart he was always a good person, but you could know who his father is and who he works with, Voldemort, that it is hard for him to really know what the right direction to go. And I love the ending of this movie, how Snape came in and protected him, because Snape, as we know at this point at the end of this movie, we think he is the worst of the worst, and little do we know he is actually here to protect him, protect Harry. He's who Dumbledore trusted. Dumbledore's dying, and he needs somebody to actually kill him, and Snape is the one who's going to fall on that knife to protect the greater good. And it really just shows you as Snape, played by Alan Rickman, great through the entire franchise. He's amazing in this movie. Tom Felton, I said, is amazing in this movie. Dumbledore, this is our last appearance where he's alive, and he is incredible in this movie. It really just has an amazing third act, but because the first 2 acts are just not that good, it's a great third act, saving a movie that if it didn't have that third act, this would be a bad movie in my opinion. And it hurts me to say that, but it really is good to a point, and that third act really is incredible. It might be the best third act in the entire series. That's how much I love this third act, but like I said, I can't put it above the other 6 movies just because the first 2 acts really drag it down. So Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix came out in 2007 and is the first one to be directed by David Yates. And this movie has a killer performance. Imelda Stanton as Umbridge. She really nails it. She is a villain that you truly hate. She's got that smile and wearing all that pink, and she's just throwing it in your face, and the thing is she's supposed to be a representative of the Ministry of Magic, and really what they're trying to do is just bury the fact that Voldemort is back. So they're all just trying to blame Dumbledore and trying to say that Voldemort's not here, he's not real, and that Harry is just making all this up, and that Robert Pattinson died for just no reason. It's just ridiculous, and you really it's just push and pull the whole movie, and it's really pissing you off. I really do enjoy this movie, but it does drag in parts, and that's why I have it in 6. It's actually shot very dark, and I do like that a lot, but the color really pops with all the pink that she really is having, so it really actually does kind of have a well-shot movie in there, and the actual Ministry of Magic is beautiful. I always have loved the way that they actually shot how the Ministry of Magic is. I love that black brick. I would get that in my house if I could, honestly, but my wife will never have it, so I gotta live with what I got, but I really do love that, and this is another movie that has a great ending. I love the fight at the end, and it has a very tragic ending where Gary Oldman's Sirius Black gets killed by his own cousin, so it's pretty messed up, and it really does. It was actually a shocking death for me when it happened, if I'm being honest, because I thought that Gary Oldman's Sirius Black was going to be in this series till the end. Again, I didn't read the book, so I had no idea that was coming, so it shocked me, and that ending is another thing that makes this movie so good, and it really sets up the franchise going forward, which David Yates would direct the rest of the movies and the 2 Fantastic Beasts movies, so he did a good job. This was a great first outing for him. I definitely had a lot of fun with this. All our main characters are definitely playing their parts right. It's one of those middle of the you know, in the middle kind of movies. You know, they're teenagers, but they're starting to work their way. So we got a lot of teenage angst in here too, which sometimes doesn't work for me. And as far as everything else, I think this is a very good Harry Potter movie. This is definitely one of the ones that I feel like most people forget. And for me, that's why I put this movie at number 6. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out in 2011 and is the last one in the main Harry Potter series. And I feel like some people are definitely going to rank this above Part 1. Actually, most people probably would. And I have a reason for ranking it lower. I am more of a fan of a slower, like more dialogue-driven movie than an action-packed movie. And this one is definitely more action-driven and has a lot more fight scenes, and definitely the whole movie is moving at a much quicker pace than the first one, which for me actually doesn't work as well. I know most people love that, and plus this is the movie where you get questions finally answered. Like, this is the movie where you find out about Snape and how his true identity and how his true love for Harry's mom is revealed to Harry, and how his father James was bullying Snape, but he still loved his mother. Like, you find out that Snape was the true hero all along that we all hoped he would be. So that was really nice. But as far as a movie overall, it just didn't work completely for me, but that doesn't take a ton away from it. This is still a top 5 Harry Potter movie. I still love this movie very much. The scene at the end where Harry versus Voldemort is beautiful. I love the skies around it. I love how, you know, when they're with their wands shooting at each other. I always just loved seeing that. I really think it ended beautifully, and the whole thing with the whole Cruxes was done awesome. You know, they definitely found a way for me to believe that, because I didn't see a way out for Harry, and I really love the way that they did it, and that he was finally able to defeat Voldemort. Now, even though I didn't read the books, I still knew Harry would come out on top, and it was still just such a good movie for me. Like, I still had so much fun seeing it. I really think that not many franchises can stick the landing, and this movie definitely sticks the landing for the Harry Potter franchise. It's just not my favorite movie, and that's the only reason that it is at this. It is still a good movie. It is still a well-directed movie. It's still got the cinematography that I do appreciate. The score has been good throughout the entire franchise, so no complaints there. You know, I know that people would definitely prefer this over 1. This is just my opinion. I still think that this deserves to be lower than Part 1, but it is still a very fun, very good movie. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out in 2010, and I enjoy this one more than Part 2, mainly because I enjoy that whole middle section for, like, the middle part of the movie where we spend most of our time with Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint. I think that this is the movie where their acting abilities shine the most, because it's really them carrying the whole middle part of this movie, where I know a lot of people felt like it slowed down from that fantastic opening. I do love the opening, how this movie opens with that entire chase scene and the tension that it builds, and the fact that we actually had a loss of life in there really built the tension of this movie. It really is special how they started this off, and I know a lot of people really don't like how it comes to a screeching halt in the middle, but I truly love that. I really think that that's essential. You really have to really be with the characters and get the emotional value of what they're trying to do, and the entire animated sequence with the whole Crux explaining that, I ate that up. I am a sucker for a good animated scene in a live action movie. This movie did it. Kill Bill Volume 1 does it. I really love that. And the animation is perfect. I would have watched the whole movie in animation form just like that. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the dialogue in this movie, and then the way it builds to a fantastic ending setting up Part 2 is also great. It really is just a really good movie, and I get the cliffhanger ending really sets up Part 2, and I think this is where this whole splitting up the final book into 2 parts started. We saw this here, and then we saw it with the Hunger Games a few years later, and I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of when they do that, but I really think it was necessary for them to do that with the Deathly Hallows, because we would have sped through this part of the story, and I think that would have been unfortunate, because I do think that this is the better part of the story personally. And, you know, I got emotional at the end when Dobby dies. I really did. If you needed somebody to sacrifice for the good of the film, I guess, Dobby was perfect, because you really cared about him, and we hadn't seen him in a few movies, and people still love Dobby to this very day, and I just really like this movie so much more than Part 2. Not saying that Part 2 is bad in comparison, because like I said, Part 2 is still a very good movie, but it's like these top 4 movies I can swap in and out. For me right now, Deathly Hallows Part 1 comes in at number 4. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was brought to the big screen in 2001 and was directed by Chris Columbus. And this is where the magic all began. This is where that feeling and the tone of the first few movies was set, that childlike wonder, that magical feeling. It was all set up here. Chris Columbus was the perfect director for this because he directed movies like Home Alone. He knows how to make a movie that a kid can really feel. And I was 9 years old when this movie came out, and I got swept up in the magical feeling. And it also helps that John Williams' Harry Potter score is one of the best scores there is. It is actually one of my favorite themes from John Williams. I really think he nailed it, and he was the perfect person for it. So it really helped having him on board. And then, you know, you get our child actors all make their first appearance here, and they're perfectly cast, and we had them for the entire series. So you couldn't have gotten any luckier picking 3 main actors, and then picking Robbie Coltrane to be Hagrid was another big one. This is our first appearance seeing him, Dumbledore, McGonagall. Everybody is working in this movie, and just showing that whole first year, you really had to set everything up perfect, and it was just, they nailed it. I love this movie so much. The scene with the Sorting Hat is one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. I would have actually loved to see more of the Sorting Hat. That is one of the best things that you could possibly put in a movie. Again, that just adds to that magical feeling. The cinematography is perfect. You get a lot of like wide shots really selling you on what Hogwarts really is. And you really needed that in this movie, and you needed it to work. And, you know, like, the threat level might not seem as strong because this is definitely more of a kid's movie in comparison to like what future movies would become. But if you were a kid in 2001 and you saw this movie on the big screen, there was no way you weren't swept up in it. This is the reason why people are obsessed with Harry Potter, and this is the reason why we're getting more Wizarding World movies, because Warner Brothers knows that this is the kind of franchise that they need. This is a franchise that's going to take generations of kids that people are going to live and die with. If you thought the books were big, the movies are just as big, if not bigger. You know, this is a worldwide phenomenon, and it wouldn't have been anything without Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban came out in 2004 and illustrates a big change in the entire franchise as we move off of Chris Columbus and move on to Alfonso Cuarón to direct. It is also the first movie to feature the addition of Gary Oldman's Sirius Black, and I think that addition really helps to elevate this movie. Sirius Black is one of the best characters in the entire Harry Potter franchise. He really adds a family element to Harry that Harry desperately needed. It really helps to, you know, really illustrate the background and really what happened to his parents. And also, this is the first movie where Richard Harris tragically passed away before this film, and they moved on to Michael Gambon, who I actually prefer as Dumbledore. I think he added a better personality element. Richard Harris kind of felt very, you know, he was playing it a certain way, not actually like, you know, compared to Michael Gambon's character. They played Dumbledore very differently, but yet both still kind of reserved, and I just prefer Michael Gambon, and then this is the first movie where we got that. And also, this movie is where we start to take more of a darker cinematography element, where it's more grays and blacks and purples and dark blues, whereas the other ones were a lot more, they had that, but they were a lot more colorful with a lot more oranges and yellows. So I feel like this movie is where we make that jump towards, I wouldn't say teenage years, I would say more like the preteen, more like preteen years. So we kind of start to shift the tone of the movie. And I also love time travel or time travel elements, and the whole third act with the time travel stuff really helped drive this movie home for me. I really do love this movie. I go back and forth if this is my number 1 or my number 2, because I really do enjoy this movie, and this is probably the one I have seen the most. I think I get the most out of this movie maybe, but I can't put it at number 1 right now. And it's not a knock against the movie. These numbers 1 and 2 are both amazing movies. I really don't have a negative for this movie. It's well acted, like I said, well shot, really pushes the magic element, starts to go towards a darker tone, and Alfonso Cuarón deserves a lot of credit for that. We never got him in the franchise again. This is his one and only movie, and I believe in Alfonso Cuarón's filmography is actually one of his better movies, so it's actually really awesome that it's a Harry Potter movie, and I know how much people love this movie. I love this movie too, and that's why it's going at number 2. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire came out in 2005 and is the one and only Harry Potter movie to be directed by Mike Newell before David Yates took over the franchise in the next movie. And this one is my personal favorite Harry Potter movie for many different reasons. Starting off with Brendan Gleeson's performance of Mad-Eye Moody. I really love the addition to this character, and the way he's played with the way the voice work and the limp is thrown in there is phenomenal. I love that addition. Also, this is the first time we see Ralph Fiennes playing Voldemort, and perfect casting right there. Ralph Fiennes is one of my personal favorite actors of all time and has never won an Academy Award, which is mind-blowing for the amount of different types of roles that he has played. And obviously I love him as Voldemort, and seeing him in this movie and then seeing his confrontation, or his first confrontation with Harry at the very end in that cemetery, is one of my favorite scenes. Actually, I'm not even gonna lie, that is my favorite scene in the entire franchise, even more than their encounter at the end of the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I love the way it's shot. The bright lighting over the dark cinematography from their wands is so perfect in that scene. I couldn't, the conflict of their colors from their wands really illustrates the good versus evil kind of aspect, and I truly loved it in that scene. And then seeing his parents, he sees his parents there, is so good. It really has that emotional element that the franchise really needed. I mean, the last movie did perfect on this as well, but this movie I think knocked it out of the park. And then obviously the very sad death of Robert Pattinson's character at the end, that's my boy! That's the only scene in the entire Harry Potter franchise that has ever made me cry. I think it makes my wife cry every single time we watch this movie. It is just so well done. Showing all 3 schools and the competition element of this film, I truly love that. Each scene showing each different stage or each different quest that they would have to go on. Each of them was interesting. It had me hooked each and every time. And then let's not forget the opening scene with the Quidditch World Cup. I could not believe that scope and element and just showing you what the Quidditch World Cup means to the Wizarding World. I was sold on it. As someplace I wish I can go. Obviously, I'll never be able to go, but Mike Newell put that in here perfectly. You really were sold on what it was. This movie also won an Academy Award for Best Production Design and a BAFTA for Best Production Design, and rightfully so, because this is, I think, the best shot movie in the entire franchise. The use of darkness and light in this movie is perfect. I think this is the only movie that really nailed that perfect balance. And it should be, because this is also the first movie where we really get to show that darkness versus light, or evil versus good. We're really building up to that great final act, but the other 2 acts are perfect. This is a perfectly paced, perfectly well-balanced Harry Potter movie. I don't think the franchise has ever gotten higher than this movie. I don't know if it possibly could. Everything was building towards this. Not that Harry Potter has ever had, I think, a bad movie in its Harry Potter franchises, but this one is really the movie for me. This is the one I love this movie. This is not just a good Harry Potter movie. This is just a great film in general. I love this movie, and that is why this is my number 1. But anyway, guys, I want to hear your list. How would you guys rank these Harry Potter movies or the Wizarding World movies? How would you rank these top 10 movies, and where would you place number 3 in the Fantastic Beasts movies if you've seen that? And always, guys, if you guys like this video and you want to see more, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends.